as a car person, and as a lot of people who love cars know, there's certain moments in your life that you see a car and you're like, that's interesting, that's awesome. Could have been a poster when you were growing up. I remember the first time I saw an NSX. I was in the car with my dad, and I was like, there's a Ferrari in Knoxville, Tennessee. That's crazy. He's like, no, that's an Acura. I was like, what? I could not believe it. So there's those kind of moments. And one of them for me specifically was the E39, the M5, BMW M5. There was a series. Like, branded content was not a thing back in 2000, right? There was this great series with Clive Owen. No one had ever heard of Clive Owen. And I think Guy Ritchie maybe directed it, and it was amazing. There was Madonna was in one, James Brown was in one. What was so cool about it was, as a content creator and someone who works with brands, I'm always getting pushback on, like, they say, well, we need to include the horsepower, we need to talk about the suspension. No, there was none of that. It wasn't like, hey, Madonna, I'm gonna get you to this event because I've got 582 horsepower and a twin turbo V8. No. It was just, you're in the car, look what the car does. And that car to me defined the perfect apex of like performance and design. I love the late 90s, early 2000s. So anyway, love that car. That really stuck out to me. So I'm living in LA, and I'm an actor. I'm working a couple different jobs. I'm working in restaurants. I don't have consistent income, but I book a job in Phoenix hosting a pop culture news show. Okay, great. Let's do it. My family stays in LA. I go to Phoenix, and I finally have some money. I'm making LA money living in Phoenix. This is great. So we're paying off credit card debt and all this, finally have some cash. So I'm like, I need a dad wagon. Now, I can't explain why this is, but every automotive journalist I know loves a wagon. Maybe it's practical, right? It's still the sedan, but you've got space in the back. It was the pre-SUV. So for some reason, too, people love a brown wagon. That's like the highlight. I don't know. For me, not so much brown, but I love a wagon. But the German wagons of the 90s and 2000s, actually currently drive a 2006 W211, a Benz wagon. I love it. So I was a wagon guy. So I know I'm looking for a wagon, and I know, thanks to Clive Owen, that I'm looking for an E39 wagon. I wanted a manual. It was my LP640, right? I was like, this is what I got to get. And I feel like cars a lot of times are like dating. So you think like out the gate, you're like, I'm going to date this girl who's a Victoria's Secret model, and she's also really nice, and she's going to, like play well with kids, like all these things. That's how I started with the car. It's going to be low miles, 5-speed in Alpine white. It's going to be the khaki interior. It's going to have everything, owned by one owner who was a descendant of Mr. BMW, and it's been totally babied. And then, as you go along, you start getting rid of some of those things. Okay, I'm not going to find that. You start compromising. Drove some in Phoenix, guys out of LA, higher mileage, third owner, but the third owner is a BMW tech. Awesome. I'm working every day. I can't get to LA. It's 6 hours one way. So I have a friend drive the car. He's like, this is great. This is awesome. The guy's like, great. I say, hey, dude, here's the thing. Coming to LA. I actually have to work. I'm hosting something. It's like a game day chef challenge cook-off thing at the USC game over the weekend. I'll be in for Thanksgiving. This is perfect. Okay, great. So I'm gonna leave on a Wednesday. I'll meet you there. This is the bank. This is where we'll go. I've already set all the plans up. He's taken pictures of everything. Here's the title, and here's the manual. It's got 2 keys. 2 keys! Who gets a car with 2 keys? It's great. Everything's great. About 2 hours out of Phoenix. On the way. It's desert. There's nothing in between LA and Phoenix, except Palm Springs, which we'll get to in a minute. I get this call. It's him, and he instantly speaks as if he's just done something wrong. I've never been cheated on in a long-term relationship or anything like that, but I felt like that was the tone of this guy. And he just came out with, I just sold the car. Sorry, what do you mean you sold I'm 2 hours outside of Phoenix, heading to meet you at the bank so we can do this deal. That we spent 2 weeks going back and forth, sharing photos, exchanging all this kind of information, and said, well, what do you mean? I sold the car. I'm sorry. I could not understand this concept. You sold my car. What do you mean you sold the car? You sold my car. You didn't even ask. You could have called. He's like, the guy just walked up. He had the cash in hand. It's Craigslist. I don't know. I was like, I offered to put money down. What do you mean? I was livid. When I tell you I've never been that angry. I've been close at 3 o'clock in the morning when my 3.5-year-old wakes up for no reason at all and wants to keep me up for 2 hours. I'm not okay with that, but never at this level. To the point, I have 2 kids in the car, 18-year-old foster daughter, 18-month-old biological daughter from my wife and myself. And my wife says, you can't drive right now. I'm fuming. I'm also conscious I'm not gonna like rip this guy because he's on speaker and I've got my kids in the car. I'm trying to like mitigate that, but internally it is like, I hope his house burns and everyone in his family die. I mean, it's just like this Crazy instant reaction. So we pull off to a truck stop so we can swap. Middle of the afternoon, hot, dry. Yes, it's November, but it's the desert. And I'm at this truck stop and I'm taking landscape rocks and I'm throwing them into the desert, screaming at the universe for what it's done to me. Why? And yeah, back in my mind, like a part of me is just watching like, Bradley, this is ridiculous. It's a car. You don't even need this car. It wasn't really your car. But then I'm like shutting that side down because like, I need to feel this moment. So I throw more saying words as loud as I could, screaming into the wind. It felt like this like Leonardo DiCaprio battling the bear in Revenant. Like it was just this guttural moment. I got back in the car, in the passenger seat, and just sat. The whole car was silent for 45 minutes, which never happens, by the way. My wife and I both love to talk. No one's talking. And now I get to the point, much like in a relationship, the jilted lover. I don't even need a car. I don't want that car. I don't want a wagon. I don't want a BMW. I don't need a car at all. You know what? I'm going to walk everywhere. I'm going to take a bike. Every time I see a car, I'm just going to flip it off and say, I don't need you, car. I was so mad. But I'd already in my mind like seen myself pulling up to work in this Alpine white car. I had seen myself road tripping, throwing a stroller in the back, going hiking with my kids. Like all that had happened, which is why I felt so personally affronted by this guy who sold my car. And I think anyone who's been outbid before on something or has had a similar instance or like, you know, been watching the car on the lot, maybe it'll go down a little and then it's gone one day. Like I felt that, you know, and I think they felt that as well. And so, all right, let me look back on Craigslist and let's see what else we can find. On the way, I find a low mile, $4,000 gray, beautiful gray BMW wagon in Palm Springs, one photo. And the writing of it, like write-up is kind of brief and weird, and I'm a little bit like, eh. So I messaged the guy, can you send me some pictures? But I'm like, you know what, screw it. I don't care anyway. It's fine, whatever. We have Thanksgiving. The guy finally gets back to me. He says, I don't know how to take photos from my camera and put them on the internet. I was like, what am I dealing with here? Who is this guy, right? And I was like, use your phone. He's like, my phone doesn't have a camera. I'm like, I don't know if I trust anything from this individual. I do my thing, I host. I remember sitting at the USC game in the Coliseum, trying to enjoy the game, but also like refresh as he's sending me pictures. The weekend finishes, now it's Sunday. Gotta head back, I gotta be at work on Monday. So we head back Sunday. I get in touch with him Saturday night. Can I come see the car? I like the car. I think I'd like to buy it. It's a great price point. In my mind, I'm like, even if it needs work, I budgeted about 7 or 8. I can buy it for 4, bring this thing back up to speed in no time. So I'm gonna go see it. Great. And it's in Palm Springs, which on the way from LA to Phoenix is a bit of a diversion, but it's kind of on the way. And my wife is patient, like an angelic saint that she is. And she says, let's go for it. So on the way back, we divert, we go into Palm Springs and I call the guy, hey, we're pretty close. I've been to Palm Springs a bunch of times. Are we meeting at the Ace? He said, yes. Okay, great. Let's just meet on the outside there. Okay, cool. A couple minutes later, phone calls again as we're kind of driving through the city. And he's like, hey, I just sold the car. So now I'm thinking, is literally God saying, you do not need to drive a BMW wagon? Is there something in my future that's going to happen? We are a mile away. We've driven 40 minutes out of the way and we're 3 minutes from you. Can I at least come see it? Because if it sucked, then at least in my brain, I'd be like, I don't want it. Maybe the inside's all torn up. It's old. Maybe the leather is cut and that's kind of annoying. Maybe it's got the air suspension and that's about to go. You know, there's like all kinds of things that could go wrong. So great. I want it just for my own sake. And then I said to him, plus if this other buyer backs out, at least you know there's somebody else who wants it. So I go and I see the car. My wife and my 18-month-old are sitting at the Ace Hotel eating pancakes at the restaurant thinking this will be quick. So I take a look at the car and I'm like, oh man, I love this car. I looked in the back, didn't have the air suspension, which was something I was worried about. That was great. It was essentially the base model. Didn't even have seat heaters. And I was like, all right, can I test drive it? And he's like, yeah, but it's sold. I'm like, great, that's fine. There's dog hair throughout. He explains to me, his wife is about to get a new 5 Series. This is back in 2014. And they don't have any room for it anymore. They were using it exclusively to transport their long-haired golden retriever. Hashtag Palm Springs life. And I said, okay, well, let me drive it anyway. You know, I'm telling the guy I'm an auto journalist. I love wagons. This is a car that's always meant something to me and really special. And, you know, we're having a long chat in the car about it. I'm testing it out. It feels great. It feels really solid. It's, you know, a lot lower miles. It's like 110,000 miles. And so we're driving around and he says, give me a second. So he makes a phone call, comes back, and he's like, I'm going to sell you this car. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, the people who wanted to buy it were in Canada. They want to part it out. They want to sell out these different parts. He's like, I don't want that for this car. This is a special car to me. This was an era when the door closed and it sounded great, you know? And so I respected that. And he was like, I love that you're an auto journalist and you really want to take care of this car. And I was like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Let's do this. And it's a Thanksgiving weekend. Banks are closed. I didn't roll around with just like $5,000 in a briefcase. So we go to the bank. I get 500 out of personal checking. I get 500 out of business. That's the most I can take out. Here's 1,000. How do I come up with $3,000 more dollars? Someone had told me if you go to Ralph's grocery stores, shout out LA for Ralph's, you can find someone like who can get you a cashier's check. Great, we'll do a cashier's check. Go to one Ralph's. Oh, you know what? They're off because of the holiday weekend. Go to another one. We stopped doing this years ago. So now we're about an hour and a half into this whole process. My wife is like, hi, honey. Everything okay? What's going on? Are you alive? I'm like, I'm so sorry, but yes, this is happening. We're going through with it. Okay. His wife had mentioned to him, if the deal is close, but he doesn't have quite enough money, just grab some grocery card gift cards or something. Oh, okay. So I kept suggesting to him, I mean, I don't know what else to do. Maybe we just get gift cards. And at this point, he's like, I just want this done. Because I was like, here's 1,000. I can come back next week. I can get another ride and I can pay the rest of the 3. You can hold the car for me. He's like, I just want this to be done. He didn't need the money. 4,000, 1,000, it didn't matter to him. It was fine. I went into Ralph's grocery store and I said, hi, I need $3,000 in gift cards. And the lady was like, let me get my manager. Manager came down. He's like, did I hear that right? Yes, I need $3,000 in Ralph's gift cards to buy, I don't know how many hundreds of avocados or whatever you can get with this, but that's what I need. So he said, okay, we can only do them in 500 increments. So I buy 6 cards. The first one, swipe through, Amex, boom. Second one, Amex calls and is like, someone's trying to buy a whole lot of gift cards. And I was like, it's me, it's fine. So I get the gift cards, we do the whole thing, sign the title over, get all the paperwork and everything. And that car stayed with me in Phoenix. We left Phoenix, moved to New York. We had an XC60. I was like, we're selling that. We're keeping the BMW. Drove through a snowstorm with my dad all the way across the country, created so many memories, so many stories, which was this capsule. Something I think car people really can appreciate about vehicles is the moments that they mark in their lives. And that was something that marked this really powerful time with my dad. And that car also ended up getting us to New York. It finally died when we had just been paired with my now 3.5-year-old son through adoption. We'd been in the adoption process for 2 years. It had finally taken. We had all of our money. We had the paperwork, fingerprints, all that kind of stuff. So we get the call on Sunday at noon. You need to meet birth mom, social worker, everybody tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in Delaware. We're in New York. It's a couple-hour drive. Okay. So we do all the things we need to do. We load up the car. My daughter's with some friends so she can go to school for the next few days. And we're merging on to the BQE, Brooklyn Queens Expressway, notoriously just a crazy road. On-ramps are like 15 yards long. You have to go to 0 to 60 in 15 yards, or just be ready for horns. And there's a utility van in front of us, and I see it, and I'm looking back over my left shoulder, and there's a break in the traffic. Clearly he's gonna go. I look forward, he starts moving, great. He's gonna take that one, I'm waiting. Here's my brake. Boom, I hit the gas. My wife screams, Bradley, bam! I slam into the back of the guy. He hadn't gone in the brake. Car is totaled because, State Farm says, hey, you broke a headlight in your car and it's gonna be totaled. I didn't have the right insurance for a car that I really cared about like that. I didn't really know that well about it at the time. So all the paperwork and stuff gets sorted. But the death of that car ended up paying for a rental for 2 weeks, allowing us to transport my now adopted son back and forth for all the appointments and things that we needed, a reliable, big, safe car, whereas my car was not so reliable and safe. It was really sweet because it was one of these things that, like, from the beginning of time, someone purchased that car, and that was gonna be the car that was gonna be a major part of my life, and eventually my adopted son's as well. So that's how I bought an E39 wagon with grocery gift cards.
Between cannonballs and rallies and car treks, I've been on well over 100 road trips, but one of the things that I always see is that nobody else is terribly prepared. And this is not just a jab at Freddie, but generally people don't bring the tools, the supplies, and the things they need to make it all the way to the destination of their road trip. And so I decided, after building kind of the kit that I take between cars for the long drives I go in unreliable vehicles, as the ultimate road trip survival kit. And you'll find a link in the description below to an Amazon shopping cart of the things that I think you need in order to get there and get there without a tow bill attached to it. So check it out now, buy what you think you want, let me know in the comments what I left out, and we'll try to keep refining it so we can build the ultimate road trip survival box.